Australia is one of the world's largest producers of coal. It's the country's main source of electricity. The industry employs around 60,000 people and exports are worth about $40 billion annually. But mining towns fear they will be left behind in the global shift towards renewables. Some communities in Australia are even taking climate action into their own hands and turning away from coal completely. Every ray of sunshine that beams onto a rooftop in this Australian town is precious. It's a sign of a new era and a chance for change. Nestled between the trees and hilltops of Australia's Great Dividing Range, Yakandanda's residents are on the way to powering their town entirely by renewable energy by 2025.
At the moment we've got 3 microgrids, a mini grid, a virtual power plant, which is a network of 10 public buildings with solar and some of them with batteries.
Residents like Juliet Milbank are making the switch on their own, while they believe most of the country lags behind. It's taken nearly a decade and they've leaned on technology, donations and several volunteers to help lay the foundations. 60% of homes here now have solar power, compared to the national average of 1 in 5.
For us, I reckon it's really just knowing that we're doing our bit to not rely so much on the coal-fired power stations to power what we do in our house.
This is what Miss Jones, along with 2 million Australian households, are shifting away from: coal. In the Hunter Valley in New South Wales, coal is the economic heart of the region. The sound of a coal train echoes throughout the streets up to 40 times a day. In 2019, Australia exported $49 billion worth of coal. But in the last year, Australian thermal coal exports dropped to a 4-year low, largely because of a slide in shipments to China. The global shift to clean energy has also resulted in thousands of job losses across the country, and that has been the core of arguments as to why the industry should be sustained. The number of coal mines here is staggering. In this region alone, there are 41 mines that span across 450 kilometres. Despite a drop in export demand from places like Asia, there are plans to build even more.
We got the news on Monday that the Independent Planning Commission has approved the expansion of the local mine here.
Michael White worked as a mining engineer for most of his life. This 200-acre property is his livelihood and his children's childhood. They moved here 20 years ago to work in the mines, but now the mines are taking over.
They are going to move from being currently about 5 kilometres away from us to a minimum of 2.5 kilometres. That's twice as close.
The sorts of things that we saw were a visible increase in dust levels. Our kids would walk across the lawn when the lawn was wet and they'd have black feet. It would be black in the bottom of our swimming pool. We still can fill a bathtub up here when we're bathing our grandchildren and the water is grey. And the amount of exposed ground and mining that's going on and the air quality, quite simply, it's horrific.
Okay, and just big breaths for me. In and out.
Dr. Bob Vickers has seen firsthand how the presence of open-cut coal mines affects people's health.
The stories of the people that live near the mines are really distressing to hear. Look, we take 20,000 breaths a day. Every breath we take, there's some air pollution in that, and it's going into our lungs, it's going into our bloodstream, it's doing the damage. This is one of our air quality monitoring stations. This is what's monitoring our coarse particle pollution, our sulphur dioxide and our nitrogen dioxide.
All around this region, there are these air quality monitors that send out alerts when nearby coal mines cause harmful levels of pollution. Studies have shown that those alerts are sent out far too often. More than 16% of 2 to 14-year-olds have asthma in this region. That's compared to 10% of 0 to 14-year-olds nationally. Nathan Clements has been employed in coal mining workshops in the Hunter Valley region of New South Wales since he left school. His father was a miner and most of his friends work in the industry. He fears his hometown will be left behind in the renewable energy revolution.
This is all I've really known for years. It's all my family's really known for a long time. If the gates were just to close up tomorrow, mass unemployment, probably a lot of people are going to default on their mortgages. I would say loss of income. A lot of people would probably move away in the long term because the work here is just not enough.
Mr. Clements says he's looking for a way out, but renewable options here are limited.
I've had a bit of a look, but it's all quite far away. I think the nearest thing I found was working on wind turbines in another state with my current skills. If I was to go further and try and enter that sector, I'd definitely need retraining. I'd have to move pretty far away from my family, so it's a pretty hard option.
As Mr. Clements turns to studying commerce to get out of the game completely, a Japanese-Australian consortium has plans to turn coal into part of the solution by extracting hydrogen from it.
To do that, we pulverise the coal into fine particles. We then add oxygen and gasify it at high temperature and pressure. We then refine it to get pure 99.999% hydrogen.
In a world first, the hydrogen will be liquefied, then shipped to Japan. They'll capture the CO2 produced in the process and store it off the Australian coast. If they can prove it's commercially viable, they'll save 1.8 million tonnes of CO2 emissions per year, the equivalent of around 50,000 cars. The decisions about clean energy and fossil fuels also have consequences for Australia's environment, including the Great Barrier Reef. Scientists warn it's under siege from global warming, with the sun scorching corals that are thousands of years old. The ability for this reef ecosystem, as well as our economic and human health systems to survive, will depend on the decisions we make today. Danielle Robertson, CNA, Hunter Valley.